Hi, welcome to the channel. My name's Jack and I'm a London-based filmmaker. So today I want to talk about the A7S III. I've only had it for a short amount of time, so I don't feel I can do a full review, but today I'd like to talk about 5 things that I love about the camera and 2 things I think that they could improve. So starting at number 1, the first thing I love about the camera is the EVF. The EVF on this camera is incredible. It's high resolution, it almost looks like you're looking through an optical viewfinder. And this actually changed the way I shoot. So previously on my C200 or rental cameras like the GH5 or the A7 III, I was using the screen to compose my shots. But using the new A7S III, I used the viewfinder 90% of the time and it was a pleasure to use. And filming using an EVF on a hybrid camera such as the A7S III has its own unique benefits. So for one, if you're out and about in environments shooting people, they're more likely to relax because they think that you're a tourist just taking snaps. And 2, having the camera pressed up to your eye actually means you're adding an extra point of contact to the camera, which means those panning shots will be nice and smooth. So the second thing I love about the A7S III is the dynamic range. It's simply incredible. Coming from the C200, which already had pretty decent dynamic range, this was just next level. So all the footage was filmed in S-Log3, ISO 640, and with a variable ND to control the exposure. And it was incredible to be able to protect the highlights in the sky, whilst also knowing that those shadow details would be retained. This meant that I could shoot high contrast scenes with ease. The third thing I love about the A7S III is the 100 frames per second in 4K. It's just beautiful. Now, if you're in an NTSC area such as the US, this is going to be 120 frames per second. But here in the UK, we operate on the PAL standard, which means 100 frames per second, which accounts to 4 times slow motion in a standard 25p timeline. In my short time shooting with the A7S III, I've just become addicted to shooting in 100 frames per second at 4K. The detail's there, the sharpness is there, and in my experience the footage looks just as good if you're shooting 100 frames per second in the standard 4K mode, or if you're shooting 100 frames per second in S&Q mode, where the camera slows down the footage for you. So like I said, I can't say enough good things about the 100 frames per second or 120 frames per second if you're in an NTSC area. Go out, go shoot with it, go use it, it's amazing. So the fourth thing I love about this camera is the autofocus. Right now I'm being filmed on the Sigma 24-70 f2.8 using face and eye detection, and fingers crossed it hasn't lost me yet. And during my test shoots around London, filming people, places and London's pigeon population, it just worked flawlessly, whether that be tracking, wide area, center area. I used all of the modes and they all worked perfectly, and it's one of my favorite features. And the fifth and final thing I love about the Sony A7S III is the handling. And this is not something I expected. Using the previous Sony A7 III on rental jobs, I found the handling to be just okay, with a grip that was a little bit too small. But on the new Sony A7S III, the grip is larger and the weight feels just right with the Sigma 24-70, which is what I shot all of my test footage on and shot handheld the entire time. It felt great in the hand, it felt comfortable, and I've got no complaints. This is my new favourite camera to shoot handheld with. So as you can probably tell, I absolutely love this camera. But there's 2 things that I found a little bit annoying, and they're quite minor. Number 1, the screen. The screen is surrounded by black bezels that are fairly sizable. You know, Sony's got experience making TVs, making phones with edge-to-edge displays. I just feel that they could have pushed the display further towards the edge, made it bigger and easier to see. Also, I would have liked to see the screen adopt a 16:9 ratio, making it easier to view video in the correct ratio. The second thing I find annoying is that the Sony A7S III only offers shutter speed. As a dedicated video camera, I would have liked to see them include shutter angle. A good example of how this has been done right is the Panasonic GH5S, a hybrid body with video-centric features. It offers shutter angle and shutter speed and gives you the option to choose between the 2 freely. I think this is what Sony should do with the A7S III via a firmware update, but I'm not holding my breath. So I only really have those 2 minor complaints. Overall, the camera has been a joy to use. Great handling, great features. I can't wait to create more content with this camera. So this has been my first video. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing and leave a comment below. What do you like about the Sony A7S III? What do you dislike? And do you have any questions for me about using the camera, the frame rates, the footage, etc.? Leave your questions and comments below. Until next time, stay safe and goodbye.